Hi, so I'm working in a project called Separatist Spaces for Safety, where we're looking at different kind of separatist mobilizations to create safe spaces differently. Everything from a festival to separate sections at the gym and so on. And in that, I have a case study focusing on a project that I work with teenage girls in different kind of participatory planning and dialogues in Sweden. We have seen quite a number of these examples of these projects starting from around 2010, 2012. So there are many different examples, not that many, but there are many examples in Sweden. So what I've been interested in is this kind of shared stories to move beyond the good examples to see what do all these kind of story, this project tells us about the need to plan for teenage girls and what kind of perspectives they bring into the process. So I've been interviewing people who work in different projects that has specifically focusing on including teenage girls. So they have been working very actively involving in creative dialogues, and the projects are quite often also resulting in a design of the physical space, part of a park, for instance, an activity area and so on. So what I'm interested in this project is focusing on places for teenage girls are understood and motivated, but also places are made through these dialogues and working together with these teenage girls. So through looking at this project, we can also see how spatial visions of the city are articulated, and the questions needs to ask, like, what are the projects wanting to achieve? How can we think differently of places, and what kind of learnings are drawn from the project? But we of course needs to focus and think about this within a Swedish gender equality discourse, and also to think about it in terms of a critical perspective and challenging the myth of Swedish gender equality, and connecting that to the figuration of the Nordic girl. Of course, the figuration of the Nordic girl is also connected to what we talk about the girl effect, the idea of investments and skills and labor of young women is the key to stimulating growth and so on. For instance, what we talk about for the World Bank. So girls are today also described as responsible, capable, promoting change, but also more concerned with saving the environment, having a sustainable perspective. So what we can see how girls are constructed as powerful agents, both for their individual capacities, but also for social change. And feminist researchers have also described how girls, because of their educational success and tendency to work hard, are also instrumentalized as the ideal neural subject. And we need to think about that when we also involving teenage girls in the project. Who are going to be empowered? Are they the girls? Are they the process, the planners, or the municipalities' planning practices? So at the same time, they're described as a group furthest away from decision-making, a group that is described as less visible than others in public space, and at the same time responsible and wanting to be part of a change. So then the teenage girl is then perceived as both capable of freeing herself, but not only herself, but also being this kind of agent for social change. So I contacted 14 different projects that have been working with teenage girls, and I've been doing interviews, individual and focus group interviews with 29 people, connecting back to the previous session. Of course, unsurprisingly, it was only one man that I did interviews with. All the people I've been interviewing, they have different positions. Some work at the municipality, some are architects, some work as consultants. But they share this understanding that these are important projects. They are very much engaged and are really describing these projects as important, and this has been a learning process of how they have learned as an individual and developed the competence in their work, but also in some kind of practices connected to that. The project also share, they argue for why focusing on teenage girls. And it's kind of, these descriptions are so unproblematic, describe that women and girls are underrepresented in public space. So this is a shared knowledge. It's not something that actually needs to be explained because everybody knows this. And they are arguing for, without even thinking about it, we have prioritized classical guy activities. there has been a lot of focus on football field, but now we need to do something differently. So in the dialogues, they have been working creatively and work with kind of several meetings with the teenage girls, but they also describe the hardship of recruiting the teenagers. And as I say something about the project, that there are also a tendency that they are located in the what could be described as social vulnerable areas outside the city centers, and that also affects the possibilities for change, but also what mandate are given. So there, and the project is also often resulting in the design of physical space. These projects are known as the good examples. They are all known in a Swedish context, and they are also talking. Some of the people I've been talking to have been working in several other different projects as well. They are good examples. They have been written about it in the newspapers, and the girls participating have also been interviewed in several reports. So all in all, these projects have attracted certain amounts of media interest, and they have been given this kind of space to do this work. So we need to also then think about what do we learn from the kind of shared story of these good examples. Several of the projects have an understanding that there is a need. We need to do this because a safe place for girls is also a safe place for everybody. So safety is something that is the starting point, or is it something that really runs through the whole project and is discussed, and it comes up from the girls, but it can also be something that is actually the starting point. So then, how are the projects motivated? Involving tilläggsgrad planning process is there to make the girls the expert, to raise issues of young girls right to the public space, but also to create places where girls feel welcome. It's also described there is this kind of shared understanding that teenage girls are a group that is less active, physically active, and especially in public spaces. So since there's also been a lot of focusing on designing activity places, the girls' voices need to be heard as well. So in that, these projects also represent the problem that it seeks to solve in specific ways. And young women's presence and participation in public space are here also then described as restricted and represented in city spontaneous sport and activity areas. So the dialogue themselves has also involved this kind of recurring meeting, the opportunity to test new and creative formats, as we also had about it during the morning here, and testing different methods. And in that, this project has also kind of pushed the boundary for what a dialogue arranged by the municipality or a consultant firm can be. So in that, we can also see how the municipality are learning something. In other words, the projects break with the kind of traditional format of a traditional meeting, listening to people's voices. Think of gender equality of presence of zero spaces, and also in concerns that teenage girls are restricted and unsafe group. So the projects also have this shared understanding, and it's positioning itself in relation to that discourse as well. So making places for teenage girls, what kind of places do the girls? And here, of course, the people working with planning these places then are describing what the girls are wanting. So we are getting representation of how they are interpreting the girls' wants for the city. To conclude, this is like they want color, soft shapes, and soft things, flowers. It's not that much the difference from other groups. With some music, some lightning, but there's also this understanding of some kind of order, some kind of, if something happens, some should be there to help out. So in that, the kind of safety perspectives is also something that is really reoccurring to behavior visibility. So the making places for teenage girls is then also described as, something that is kind of easy to fix, something, place to sit, to read, a lot of flowers, a lot of colors. Something that we more or less could have got even without asking the teenage girls. But then, of course, they are talking about it as the meaningful participations and other learning process in so many different ways. There's also some talk about this drawing boundaries and talking about, even though the places are described as being places that are open, that everybody should be able to use, and so there is also something that to make the place their own. They can be, of course, connected to that teenage girls often ask for swings, but how then, what kind of swings are they planned for? And there could be swings that are easy to make into a separate space of your own, with your body. Close out the surroundings on. The color pink also comes back and forth through the interviews, and how to use the colors to kind of exclude guys from some particular places, using pinks because then we think that the guys won't be there. So in that, even though there is the interviews are focusing on the girls' perspective, but at the same time, the boys are also constantly present without being present because it's something that is referred to back and forth. And it's talked about if the guys takes over the control of a place, it's very hard to get it back. We end up with a description of that making places for girls is making places for everyone. And of course, this also connects to the Swedish gender equality, there's of course connecting to sameness for everybody. And I think that almost all the projects talked about is when we do it for the girls, if it's a good place for the city, for the girls in the city, it's a good place for everyone. If teenage girls feel safe, it's probably that everybody feels safe. So through this project, we move also towards a non-critical understanding. We're not only thinking about what do the teenage girls actually are asking for, but also thinking about what bodies are actually planned for. Here are just two of those examples of thinking about doing something differently with the planning processes. And one is the design of a bench with a shorter than normal backrest. That is a backrest that is really actually adapted to the girls' bodies. The backrest becomes an important part, and in another project it describes how the backrest should be. So it should be comfortable, but at the same time you shouldn't lay down too much because you need to have an overview, a sense of safety. So in that, the projects also move beyond kind of established ideas about what children and young people often ask for, in terms of, for instance, swings and so on, and different colors and so on, to actually think about which bodies we are planned for. In this particular place, the bench is planned for a shorter body. This non-critical understanding also connects to how it's argued for that places for teenage girls, that of course is open and used by everybody, can also be a place where you can be a boy in different ways. It's not just one way of being a boy in those kind of going places. So I'm right now some kind of concluding thoughts and thinking about what do we learn from this? What to think about that places for teenage girls are considered as safe places and places for all. In that we can also understand that teenage girls become this kind of unproblematic group. If it's a good place for teenage girl, is it a good place for everyone? And what is it then about the teenage girl that creates this understanding of that what is good for them is good for everybody? Teenage girls are then considered as a harmless group who don't claim places at the expense of others. A group that usually not described as a group that disturbs. And this project has also been thinking about this kind of non-disturbable things in the control of the places. If, for instance, speakers are integrated in the design, it's also connected to how high volume it can be listened to, and that music only can be listened to during specific times. So places for teenage girls are not only represented as less disturbing, but also as less norm control. It's more open. It's not just one way of being girl, but at the same time should be open to be more than one way of being performing masculinity in those places. So both of the teenage girls are described as a kind of unproblematic group, but at the same time we can also see how what the girls want are not really something that disturbs the kind of thinking about what a park should look like. And that is also something that becomes easy to integrate and kind of not really challenging any gender power relations in the city. When we're thinking about planning for teenage girls, it is described as a win-win situations. It's talked about that the girls participating are empowered, that the planners are learning a lot, and it's also kind of resulting in inclusive and open places. At the same time, the people I've been interviewing is describing frustrations about it's easy to get politicians to sign up for a full moment when the park is open, but at the same time, it's not really integrated in the planning practices of the municipality as a whole. So we see the kind of same patterns with a lot of gender equality work, as we see in everywhere. Short-time measures and challenges is creating a long-term change. I'm not really sure how long time I have left. I think I should be. Sorry?
Could you wind up there?
Yeah. So the planning then is for this kind of win-win situation. We need to always keep thinking about what are the processes actually, who are supposed to be empowered. I think a lot of focus has also been about empowering the girls, and this is of course also important, but to connect that to the kind of understanding of the girl effect. They're also supposed to take what kind of responsibility we are leading and giving to the girls, and who has the main responsibility, and of course keeps that bringing back to the municipalities and the projects to keep up the kind of work to actually promote change. Yeah, I think I stop there.
Great.